So you can see at the upper left-hand corner, there are these little tabs that say Input, Output, Palette, Info. So the input is going to show you your original artwork, and the output is going to show you it in mosaic form. Palette just shows you the tiles you're using, and Info tells you a little more about the project. It starts out having this lime green grid over the image. What this grid does is show you 1 square foot sections, and if you don't want it, all you have to do is press Command B and it'll go away. Tylist has a row of tools at the top and on the right hand side, and I'm going to start with the ones on the right because these are more general edits, and I would say the tools at the top are for more fine-tuning. I'm going to start with the input settings, which is the very first top collapsible panel. If you click input settings, it opens up and closes. Input settings are a lot like photo filters. You can do brightness, contrast on a sliding scale. You can use them in input mode or in output mode, so definitely play around with those. Then underneath that, we have mosaic size. So this should be 8 foot by 8 foot, and this has been preset for you, so do not change that. Then underneath that, we have mosaic rendering. For style, I always put it as sharp so the image is nice and clean. And then we have our dithering scale. So dithering is kind of like the fuzziness of your image. If you have an image with graphic hard edges, you would want a low number on the dither scale. And if there's something that's fuzzy or really blended, you'll want a higher number. Our next section on the right-hand side, tools, is the tile palette. It should be preset at 0.375 standard, and that is our 3/8 vitreous glass. Do not change anything about that. Underneath that, we have our vitreous glass types. If you click the word vitreous glass, it'll expand and show you all the different colors we have. When you first load an image into Tylist, all of the colors are checked. A quick way to only check the ones you're using is to go to the top left, Edit, and then click Deselect Unused Tiles. So what this will do is uncheck any colors that are not used in your image. From there on, all you have to do to add color is check and uncheck boxes. Sometimes if you check a box, it'll still say 0 just because that color isn't present in your input image, and that would be a time when you'd have to add the color manually with the tool at the top, which I'll get to later. The last section on the right hand side is our grout section. And so this can be a really important factor of a mosaic. You want to choose a grout that brings out the best in your image and isn't distracting from it. So definitely play around with a bunch of different grout choices if you can. So now we're going to do some fine tuning with the tools at the top. The colorful 4 squares is our tile palette. I like to have it open, and you can click a color and there's a black box around it indicating which color you've selected. Sometimes when I select a color, I like to zoom in by scrolling, and then I pick the green pencil tool, and this allows you to add in a tile color one at a time, which sometimes is perfect for the final touches of your mosaic. To the right of the pencil tool is the eraser, which just deletes tiles. You're probably not going to want to use that because it reveals the grout behind, and we want to make sure that every square inch of this 8 foot by 8 foot section is covered in tile. We don't want any missing sections, so I wouldn't use the eraser. Next to the eraser is the magic wand tool, and this highlights all of one color of tile. It's really good for seeing where you might have a color. The next tool to the right of that is a paint bucket. This one can be used by selecting a color from your palette and dyeing all of one color into a different color tile. The next tool is the eyedropper, which acts the same as selecting a color on the palette. If you click the eyedropper tool over a color, you have now selected that color. The blue box, or the region tool, is good for cutting out sections if you have say a countertop space. We're not going to really need it for this 8-foot by 8-foot panel because it just reveals the grout behind. And then finally there is the crop tool, which you also aren't going to be using, but it's good to know. Command T is the crop tool, and it allows you to crop out part of the image if you want a smaller mosaic, but to keep part of the image.